I just ate.
Oh, what'd you
I'm
have?
thankful to wait out some mornings.
Oh,
That's good.
Yeah.
No, I think that's good.
Cool, nice. What do you study here?
Public relations.
Okay,
What about you?
I actually work for career services.
Oh, you? Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then also teaching.
How far along are you in the program?
We graduated today. Yeah.
So you're just looking where to.
Yeah, I did an internship in
So, yeah, so that's good. I think it'll be nice. DJ will give you great, because so we have two individuals that go off.
Yeah, next
I do some, but the DJ.
Yeah, I'm sensitive. A little nervous.
Yeah, for sure.
And
for
DJ
sure.
with DJ may hear them all.
Yeah, there's got a lot of employers, so it'd be a good opportunity. Yeah.
I couldn't figure out where you were.
Yeah, sorry.
I was lost.
There, you know, lost. It's really not active. Like, I'm gonna hit this one first.
So I'm Kelly Dorner, and I am Director of Internal Operations for Career Services next door in our Foundation Hall. How many of you have ever been into our office before, just out of curiosity? All right, good. Erica works there, so she has to come there quite a bit. Welcome to our Career Fair Prop Session. We're happy to have you guys here today. You are in for a very special treat because obviously, as a career services professional, I'm just loaded with all sorts of advice that I'd love to give you. And to supplement the advice that I'm giving you today, we actually have Quicken Loans in the house to offer advice. This is Eric Jones, and he is with Quicken Loans, and he is going to be talking to y'all about really developing a personal brand. The career fair that you will be attending tomorrow is our biggest fair of the year, which is pretty exciting. We have over 120 employers attending, and at this particular fair last year there were about 1,000 students in attendance. So this topic of personal branding and how you can really stand out is an important topic, right? How do you go about navigating that space of there are 1,000 other students in this room and I want to do the best that I can to put my best foot forward, right? And so Eric is going to be prepared to talk to y'all today from an employer's perspective about the best way to go about that. And so the good news is that by the time you leave today's session, you'll have a really good idea of what to expect during the fair, because that's what we're going to kick off with today. And then Eric can talk to you about your personal branding strategy. And I'm pretty confident that you'll leave today with a good idea of how to really prepare in that regard before the big day tomorrow. Sound good? All right. So we have a small enough group that I'd like to spend just a minute getting to know who I've got in my room here, because then the advice that we give you will be customized to folks in the room. So if you don't mind, we're going to do just a quick round robin of introductions. So do you mind starting for us?
Sure. My name is Zach, majoring in economics. I'm in my final semester of my senior year.
Wonderful. And have you been to one of our career fairs before, Zach?
I have.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Good. Well, we're glad to have you here today.
My name is Christy. I'm a political science major, and I'm also a senior graduating this semester.
Wonderful. Congrats. Sneaks up fast, doesn't it?
Sure does.
Yeah, I bet. And have you ever been to one of our career fairs
I
before?
have.
Okay, good, good. All right, what about in the back? Hi.
My name is Kylie. I am a sophomore. I am an English major with a communications minor.
Excellent.
I have never been to the career fair before, which is why I figured I'd stop
Yeah.
in here and see what I can figure out more for tomorrow.
Excellent. Very good. And you?
My name's Rachel. I'm a freshman. I'm majoring in accounting here.
Great.
And I went to the career fair in the fall.
Did you? Okay. Excellent. Very good. Okay. And Josh is a career consultant.
Yeah, I'm Josh, I'm a career consultant. I'm an OU grad, bachelor's and master's.
Hi, I'm Michael. I'm a public relations major, psychology minor, and graduating in May.
Awesome.
And I've never been to a career fair before, so it should help out a lot.
Great. So how are you guys feeling about tomorrow? Are you excited? Are you nervous? Are you just feeling like you're not exactly sure what to expect? Maybe all the above? Okay, okay, awesome. All right, so Eric, do we have a clicker somewhere, don't we?
Yeah.
Oh, good. With these things, inevitably, I always go the wrong direction first, so bear with me. And that's exactly what I did. There we go. So, event details. I want to explain a little bit about how the format for tomorrow works. Basically, I say with much pride that we take over the whole second floor of the Open Center. That's the essence of what to expect tomorrow. So, if you've been to one of the career fairs before, you can kind of picture what I'm talking about. I'll share with you a little bit of anecdotal advice that I think is pretty important to absorb and keep in mind. There are 2 rooms. Last fall, for those of you that were there, I don't know if you fell into this trap or not, but some of our students came last fall just expecting that there was one room, and then they never made it all the way down the hall to that second room where there was a whole other room full of employers that were excited to meet students. So just keep in mind that we're in the banquet rooms, which the banquet rooms are the rooms that are just at the top of the staircase, where if you picture that staircase with the piano by the doors that you get into the Oakland Center from P1 at, do y'all know what I'm talking about? When you go up that staircase, the set of rooms that is on your left is the banquet rooms. So there'll be a set of employers in there, and then there will be employers that are all up and down that hallway just outside of the banquet rooms, leading toward the ballrooms, where there's a whole new set of employers that are going to be excited to meet you guys. So keep that in mind, 2 rooms and a hallway that connects, filled with employers. So like I said, there'll be about 120 employers or so that will be excited to meet you. The way that the fair is organized is when you first check in, you'll get a map. That map is listed alphabetically, and you'll be able to see what the employer's booth numbers are. So the employer names are listed out alphabetically, you'll be able to see booth numbers. The other thing that I'll tell you by way of setup that we did for this particular fair, it's our first time trying it this way, is we've got the employers sort of segmented out by industry. So in essence, you know, if you are hoping to talk to an automotive company, then that is an industry where basically we've got a certain section of the ballrooms, if I'm not mistaken, that's dedicated to automotive companies. Same thing with insurance. So you'll find that the insurance companies are all located in one specific area. And so ultimately, just kind of keep in mind that that's how it's organized, but don't spend a ton of time to dissect that or think through it too much, because you'll get a map that has all the employer names and booth numbers on it. Just sort of sharing that in case you know for sure that there's a particular industry that you're really targeting, okay? So the career fair happens tomorrow from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. And what I would say is, depending on the number of employers that you're targeting to talk to, you can very easily spend a couple of hours at this fair. As each of you are planning your time, do you think you have that much time to spend tomorrow, or any of you on a more limited time frame? Anybody on a more limited time frame? Okay, good. So in essence, if you're going into this knowing that you've got time on your side, usually what I recommend is, before you go into the room, sit down with that map, right? Start to look over what employers are where, plan your approach, think about your elevator pitch, maybe even practice it with one of us career services folks that'll be sort of meandering around that space in our ready room, and really get all those nerves worked out of your system before you even head into the room. But then, if you have a number of companies that you want to talk to, the advice that I always give students is, don't feel like you've got to tackle that all at once, right? Like, you could go talk with a couple of employers, come back out. It's not some sort of weird escape room that you're all of a sudden trapped in and you've got to find a code to get out of, right? Like, you can sincerely talk to a couple of employers, come back out, sit down, digest what you've heard, maybe take down some notes about who to follow up with and how, and then go back in and talk to a couple more employers. So really take your time with it. Professional dress is most certainly required, and we'll talk a little bit about what exactly that means. And some other things that you can be doing to get prepared. We have what's called our career studio that is in our career services office in North Foundation Hall. It is drop in, come as you are, stay as long as you'd like. And if this is something that you would like to do today for sort of that last minute resume advice, or maybe to practice your elevator pitch, in other words, how you're going to brand and really introduce yourself to an employer, that's something that you can stop into our office and do. And in fact, today you're in for a real treat because we have a guest star in our career studio today that will be none other than Eric. So truly, this is a golden opportunity for y'all because if you want advice from an employer, if you want the opportunity before tomorrow to show your resume to Eric to say, hey, this is what I'm thinking, this is the type of opportunity I'm looking for, what advice do you have to share with me on my resume? This is something that is a golden opportunity that you won't necessarily get again in a no-risk environment like this. So even if Quicken is one of the companies that you're targeting for tomorrow, what better time to get advice than somebody that works at Quicken in terms of any type of edits or last-minute strategies to keep in mind as you're thinking about how to position yourself best at the career fair, right?
Absolutely.
So Eric will be there this afternoon, and we are open. The career studio is actually open until 7 o'clock tonight, if that timing of when Eric's there this afternoon doesn't work. And I think you're here until 3 o'clock?
Yep.
Awesome. Another thing that I can tell you that's happening tomorrow is we have what's called a diversity networking mixer that is separate from our career fair. It's happening tomorrow evening from 4 to 6 p.m., and it's actually sponsored by Quicken Loans. And the essence of this event is it's much smaller scale than a career fair. So you all are at various different points of your time at Oakland. Maybe some of you are looking for internships. Maybe some of you are looking for that first opportunity after graduation. We have some seniors in the room, so I'll focus on that. You all know that it's important that you find a job after graduation, right? Like there's no secret there. I'm not unveiling some big surprise that you're gonna go home and stress out about. You're very well aware of that. That's why you're coming tomorrow, right? But you don't just want a job, right? Would you agree with that? What are some of the things that are important to you as you're really thinking about landing in the right place?
Benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Someone that I actually like. It's not about just the money.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's good.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so sometimes for some people, a big part of making that decision of what do I like, where am I going to be happy, is really tied back to the culture of the company, right? And so this event tomorrow from 4 to 6 p.m. is really intended to be an opportunity for students to come and mix and mingle with employers in a fairly no-risk situation because the topic isn't necessarily what jobs do you have, right? And how do I connect with those jobs? That's the career fair. This is more of an opportunity to get to know a company and their culture at a more intimate level. There's about 15 employers that will be attending, and they're fully anticipating that our students are going to come to this prepared to learn more about culture and work environment, and really some things that they have in place that make their culture unique. Anything you want to add to that, Eric?
So just as an organization, when you're talking about culture, and I'm glad you said what you did because most people say, okay, I'm a senior, I need to find a job right now, right? And then they say, I want that one because it pays me X amount of dollars. And then they go there, and then this thing called deception sits in about 6 months into it. You start to forget about like that you're new and how great it felt. You're like, I'm in the grind. This is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life, right? So it's good to go and find an opportunity that, one, that matches your culture, matches the culture that you have for yourself. It's a place where you see yourself growing. There's some succession planning to it where you have a chance to grow based off of what you do, hopefully. And it's something you're passionate about. Right? I'll give you an example. I live in Ohio, right? I live near Bowling Green, Ohio, near BGSU. I drive from there to Detroit every day. If I didn't like working for the organization that I work for, I would not drive an hour and 10, 15 minutes every single day, especially in the winter, right? That makes zero sense. And I've been doing that for a very, very long time. I've been at Quicken Loans now for 13 years. So it's one of those things that you have to be passionate because not every day you're gonna get up and be like, yes, I wanna go to work today. But you have to like the people you work with, what you're involved in at work and what you're doing, and then where's your growth opportunity based off of the effort that you put in. And if those things align, then that's the right opportunity for you. Last thing you want to do is take an opportunity because of money, or your friends told you, or don't beat me up for this, but your parents told you to do it, right? Because at some point, they're not gonna be there anymore, and it's gonna be you, and you're gonna be responsible for your day-to-day actions. Does that make sense? So I'm glad you said that, very good.
Yeah, excellent. So what better opportunity to come and explore such a thing at this mixer tomorrow? And I think that that'll be a great fit for those that have that mindset of just trying to find that right opportunity. So preparation, really now we're at the day before. So what should be going through your mind? Really, some of the things going through your mind would be, are there any last minute changes that I need to make to my resume? And again, if you want that second set of eyes in that resume, if you haven't had that done yet, I'd strongly encourage it. Your resume is very likely, especially for you seniors, this is something y'all have been working on, right? And what happens sometimes is just get too close to it. And you don't even realize that there is a small typo on line 3 because it's something that you've been staring at for so long. Let us find that for you. Eric doesn't mind finding it today.
Oh,
tomorrow might be a different story, but he doesn't mind finding it today,
Tomorrow
right?
they will look at it.
So definitely come and get a second set of eyes on that resume and just make sure that it's looked over and pristine. This second one, I wish that I didn't even have that up there right now. This is not something that I want you guys to be worried about. Sometimes, you said you're a communications major, right? So sometimes if a communications major is really passionate about the creation of print media, they want to be able to utilize their resume and this opportunity of having a personalized business card as a chance to show that employer, here's my brand, right? Here's how I can create something that's aesthetically pleasing, and here's how I am going to market my most important brand or product, i.e. myself, right? And so this is not, the reason why I say that I wish it wasn't up here today is because I don't want y'all thinking the day before the career fair that, oh my gosh, should I not come because I don't have personalized business cards. It's okay. It's something to think about for the future if that seems like something you might want to do to help create this brand that we'll be talking about. But don't throw in the towel just because you don't have something like that to bring to the fair tomorrow. What we're going to talk about next is researching companies. And that really goes along with what type of topic you're going to talk with them about, having an elevator pitch, and so forth. So we're going to spend some time talking about that now. And that whole elevator pitch concept will also be part of branding yourself as well, which I'll let Eric talk about. And then we'll also spend a couple of minutes talking about appropriate attire. But most important thing that I can tell you is no matter what you do tomorrow, be sure that you're doing your research on employers. This is, in this information age that we're living in, I'm going to get on a little bit of a soapbox a little bit for just a minute here and tell y'all that in this information age that we're living in, from an employer's perspective, I would argue that there's really no excuse to stand at a company like Quicken Loans tomorrow and have your first question be, so what do you guys do?
The first question we're going to ask you is, what do you know about us? We own 100 companies. I gave you guys all a tip. We own 100 organizations. One of them you use probably frequently. You've heard of dictionary.com? It's one of our famous companies, thesaurus.com. When you go pump gas at the gas station, it's called Gas Station TV. We own that too as well. So there's a ton. You just have to do the research.
Yeah. And so that research is so critical. And for Pete's sake, what I will often tell people is, like, even if your time is super limited, even if you had a half hour to talk to 3 companies at the career fair, there's going to be lines at these employers, and it's one of those things where, gosh, you're standing in line, look them up on your phone super quick. I would hope that you're doing a little bit more research. Y'all are going to be the well-prepared ones because you're getting these tips and tricks today, right? But the notion of looking up an employer while you're standing in line is sort of like that last-ditch effort that's certainly better than opening with a question of, what do you guys do, right? So we'll talk more about that as we really think about branding, but that research is so darn critical. So I want to now come off my soapbox and let's talk more about the practicality behind this. So let's think about research for a minute. Tell me how you guys research companies. And no, we're not going to stop talking to you, so let's just get that out there in the open. How do you research a company? What do you think?
I mean, you can go on various websites like you have listed there, and just kind of look at reviews from people who work there.
Yeah, and so have you ever been on Glassdoor?
Yeah.
So that's one example. Certainly Glassdoor, LinkedIn has such a thing, and even Handshake has company reviews posted. So these are people that worked at that company before. I always say to some degree, we're in such a information age of having this stuff at our fingertips that I think you have to take some of it with a grain of salt, right? Because sometimes a former employee might not have such nice things have not such great things to say about an employer, but it's because something really, like they did something bad, right? So that's why they had a sour experience with that employer. So take that stuff with a grain of salt, but I do agree that that's a good way to be able to research. And what that does is when you're approaching a table like Quicken, it empowers you to be able to say, when I was doing my research about Quicken, I noticed that your former employees said X, Y, Z that they really loved about their company culture,
Absolutely.
right?
Yep.
So that's certainly one way to go about research. Also, like Eric said, know the product, right? What else would you add here by way of researching?
I mean, it's most companies have a internet brand or brand just like you do as an individual, right? Because they want a positive light on their organization. I'll ask you a quick question. How many of you watched the Super Bowl at all, or watched the commercials for the Super Bowl? Did you see the Rocket Mortgage commercial?
Mm-hmm.
So we got feedback that it was the 5th best light commercial, partly because we had Aquaman. I don't know his real name, but we had Aquaman in it, right? And he took his muscles off during the commercial. So it was kind of like this
love that one.
comedy spin on being comfortable in your home. So companies want to be able to poke fun at themselves at times, but yet they also want to gain a little bit of interest and to intrigue you. Think about like any movie trailer that you go watch or that you see that comes out on Wednesday. So you go spend $40 going to the movie theater, right? It's to plant that seed to gain excitement. So think about that when you're thinking about researching an organization. You can ask Siri. Siri will probably tell you, or Alexa, right? They'll probably pull up some facts for you. But what we're looking for as an organization or as a company, we're not looking for you to give us a full definition of who we are. It's, do you know just a little bit? Do you know anybody who's ever worked at our organization? Maybe what someone at the university has said about the organization, and it's just an ice-breaking conversation. That's really what it is. But those are some ways that, specifically here, we're on all of those, as well as Instagram, which I know most people are on.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so I also want to spend a bit of time showing you how you can research the employers that are coming to the career fair on Handshake. So let me escape from this presentation just for a moment, and I'm going to actually hop into Handshake, and we can take a look at that. Let's see if it's going to let me just go back here. And then I'm going to go into my student view, so bear with me for just a second, because I want to show you all exactly what you're going to see when you go into Handshake to do your research. So if you go to Events, so that's the tab up here, and you go to Fair Search and find career fairs, what you're going to see right up top is the Winter Career Fair, okay? And if you scroll down here, what you're going to see is an option to click on View All Employers. And now you can see a big, huge list of every single employer that's coming to the fair. And it's listed alphabetically. Has anybody spent time in here yet? Okay, so what did you find out when you were taking a look at it?
Well, I noticed that sometimes it'll tell you if they're hiring a major or not. So it'll tell you we're looking specifically for these kind of people in this area.
Yes.
You know, I don't know too much about all this kind of stuff, but that helped me to be like, okay, these ones might be potential people that I want to go and see during the fair.
Yeah, definitely. And so the good news is that if the notion of, okay, there's 120 some odd, and you have 24 hours, I mean, just spend the next 24 hours straight researching all 120 some odd. Nobody's actually going to do that, are they? No? Y'all can laugh at my bad jokes, shake your head. I don't know. Nobody's going to do that. So ultimately, what you can do here is you can, to your point, narrow things down based upon major, for example. So in your case, you probably came here to majors, went to View All, and went to communications. And for the sake of discussion, we'll select all of those related to communication. And also, maybe you happen to know that at this point, you really are only interested in internships and not full-time jobs. Maybe. So you can click on, under job type, internships. And what you're starting to get here, gang, is just a more filtered list of companies tailored to your specific interests. So, in terms of what you can do, I want to show you all a couple of different things. I mentioned that tomorrow when you show up, you're going to be given this like 4-page map of all the employers. That map has the booth numbers on it too. But sometimes when people are preparing, especially if it's someone that knows I only have X amount of time and I need to really focus on the employers that I want to see, then you might even choose to write down booth numbers. So this is the booth number that Affleck will be at tomorrow, booth number 66, and you can start to make some notes on that for your top employers of interest. Then you can actually click on View Details and get some ideas of, just like what you said, the majors that they're looking for, whether they're looking for full-time work, part-time work, what school years, majors that they're looking for, all of that is located here. You can even click on this hyperlink here and go out to their company website and research more on their company website. And so those are some things that you can do right here from Handshake. Something else that I want to share with you that I think is also important to take with a grain of salt is the information on what majors these companies are selecting. I would like you to get more broad with the way you're thinking in that regard. So you can narrow it down by major, you can also narrow it down by particular industries that you might be interested in. The devil of narrowing it down based upon major and sticking with that is you've got to keep in mind that when employers were filling out this registration, many of them filled it out in like November, and this is February. So what they were looking for in November has probably changed, right? The other thing that often happens at companies is it's probably not Eric himself that is the one clicking on these buttons and filling out the registration form. It's maybe somebody that supports him in administrative capacity. Not that that's a bad thing, right? But they might not know all the different things that Eric is going to be looking for come the month of February when...
That's spot on, true statement right there. And sometimes realistically, it could be a recruiter and they're filling this out for a lot of different events. So they're just doing it as fast as they can, just to say, I'm registered, I've paid, I'll be there and I'll talk to the students once they get there. So take it as, like she said, grain of salt. If it's a company that you really want to go talk to, regardless of what they have open, go talk to them. Because you'll be surprised once you get there, there could be an opportunity that could be opening up or one that's recently opened.
So yeah, look at what's connected to your major, but also do some introspective thought on your end. You know, a lot of you are connected to majors like communications, like economics, like accounting, where that's potentially in any industry, right? Do some thought beforehand to say, okay, if I had my pick, what industry would I be doing this line of work in? And limit it by industry instead of major, and see if there's other companies that might be attractive to you that haven't even mentioned looking for your major. And if you go and talk with a company, gang, and they happen to say, at this exact moment, I don't have a need for your particular major, don't let that discourage you. We're gonna talk about still, you know, following up, maybe connecting on LinkedIn.
That's it, for sure.
Right?
Making sure that you connect in some way, shape, or form, because they may know someone that knows someone that knows someone that has that ideal opportunity that you're looking for. I'll give you a prime example. When I first started working at Quicken Loans, I knew nothing about mortgages. I still kind of don't, right? I've been there a long time, but like working at a mortgage company was not the coolest or sexiest thing, right? Like who wants to go do that? So you walk past the booth and you see Rocket Mortgage, you're like, yeah, we keep moving. But I just told you guys earlier, we own 100 other companies, right? So that means that there's opportunity in other avenues. Communications major. I was a communications minor. I was a communications major in school. Now I'm in a sales capacity / recruiting / HR / PR / marketing role. You never know what your skill set or what you're learning here at the university, how those transferable skills will help you land an opportunity within an organization that you may have never thought that you could work at. So keep that in mind too as well.
Great advice, great advice. So I'm gonna give you all, I'm gonna pass this around. This is something for you, thank you, to just keep in mind as you're thinking more about what employers you're gonna approach. And it very much is along the spirit of what we've been talking about here in terms of doing your research. You don't have to fill out every section of that form, but it's a little bit something to really, little bit of something just to get the juices flowing. What does employer research look like? What should you know about these companies? And really think about those types of things, okay? So, the next thing that I want to talk about before I turn things over to Eric is this whole concept of professional attire. Do y'all have your outfits planned out for tomorrow? You know what you're going to wear? The suit? Yeah. And so sometimes students will question, is a suit really necessary? And what I'll tell you is you'll see a lot of people tomorrow in suits. Now, what that also means is well, let's start with those that identify as masculine first. If you don't have a suit, then don't let that stop you from coming, okay? I also think that a shirt and tie looks nice, and a nice pair of pressed slacks and clean shoes, right? So I think that that would also look very nice. I think that an example of what not to do, prior to our career fairs being in the upstairs of the Oakland Center, we used to have them in the rec center. Those of you that are upperclassmen probably know that. And we literally would have students that were like, oh, I didn't even know that we had a career fair today. Oh, look, there's the Quicken Loans booth, and I'm in my tank top and my basketball shorts, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to talk to them, so I'm just gonna, rush into this career fair, and I'm like hot and sweaty in basketball shorts and a tank top. Well, that's obviously not what you want to do, but I think that you should absolutely do your best to be as business professional as you can. Not necessarily because they dress that way at Quicken, right? But it's a matter of just putting your best foot forward. Anything you want to add there for
Like
guys?
tomorrow, you're going to see employers that are going to be there. They're going to have jeans, like long sleeve T-shirts on that are branded with their organization. You'll see some that have suits on and those type of things too as well, or dresses. Don't feel like you need to rush to the mall today and buy a suit, right? To your point, just make sure that you're presentable. Remember, you're presenting yourself, you're presenting your brand, which we'll talk about here shortly. And make sure that what comes out of your mouth matches what you have on. Does that make sense?
So, any questions from the guys about what to do? Okay, so those that identify feminine, what you'll want to do is, again, if you have a suit, then by all means, if you have a pantsuit or maybe like a blazer and skirt, by all means, I think that that's very appropriate for tomorrow. I also see plenty of women that are able to pull off a very professional style with a pair of dress slacks and a blouse, not a super loud pattern blouse, right? You want to be a little bit more conservative than that tomorrow, because there's a risk that it could just fall into perception of your brand, and it might be something that you're not really trying to articulate, right? So I think that a nice blouse and a pair of dress slacks work. I see women do, a very nice blouse or professional sweater and maybe a skirt. If you go the skirt route, you got to be sure that it's of appropriate length. So you're going to want to have it probably right about knee length, I would say is the best bet. And watch the heels too, ladies. So if you feel most comfortable in heels, definitely don't do the high heels for the career fair for a few different reasons. One, because you might quickly find that it's not quite as comfortable, right? They look good, right? But it's not quite as comfortable as you'd like them to be. And two, the career fair tends to get pretty crowded, right? There's a lot of people in there, and it can just sort of get difficult to navigate. I have seen unfortunate circumstances where women have fell in their heels, and it's just, that's one of those don't let that be you, right? Type of scenarios. So even a conservative flat, if you have it, or a nice modest heel is probably the way to go for something like this tomorrow. Any questions from the ladies about what's acceptable by way of dress? Okay, so then, any questions at all about the career fair in general in terms of the layout, what to do, in terms of where to go, how to know what employers are coming, what to wear? Have we covered that? All right, and y'all get to go to the fun stuff now. And I'll let Eric take over and talk to you about your brand.
So before we jump into just brand, there's some of these slides that you guys are gonna kind of know. Some of it is, I don't want to say it's common sense, but it's just common things that you probably get heard before. I may go through them fairly quickly. If there's any slide that you're like, whoa, I need more explanation or I have a question, we're just gonna throw the questions out there. So very, very informal, right? I will give you another tip for tomorrow. For those of you that, I think you said you've never been to a career fair, never been to a career fair, maybe you've been to one or two, take the time just to walk in every single area that there's employers. Take a lap when the career fair first starts, right? Just take a lap. That way it kind of releases those nerves a little bit. That way you don't walk up to someone, you're nervous, and you're like, hey, you're the first person I talked to, and you're talking fast, and you're like, okay, yeah, thank you, appreciate it. And then the next person comes up and you're like, I blew my shot, right? Take a lap, walk back out, practice your pitch, and then go back in and go to those employers that you really want to talk to. Does that make sense to everyone? So we're going to talk a little bit just about brand, right? So really quick before I go to the next slide, because it kind of gives it away a little bit, but can you tell me what do I mean by brand? When we say brand, what are we talking about? Just throw it out, whatever you think.
How to present yourself, I guess, in front of an employer.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
Anyone else, anything else to add?
Presentation,
Yeah, presentation like what?
like communication skills, I guess.
Yeah. What else?
Show who you are.
Show who you are. Kind of backing up the resume, right? Backing up who you are as far as on your footprint here on campus, your footprint in the community, your footprint on social, which we'll talk about here a little bit too as well. Anything else that you can think of when you think of brand? Perfect. All right, here we go. So, why personal brand? Can someone just read that for me really quick? Anyone?
I will.
Perfect.
Employers spend as little as 5 to 10 seconds reviewing your resume. Recruiters may decide whether or not they like the candidate in the first 1 or 2 minutes.
Doesn't that seem short?
Yeah,
That seems super short, but that's real. That's super real, right? If a person walks up and, for example, I'm gonna use you really quick, Kelly. So Kelly's the employer, I'm a student, I walk up and I'm like, hey, how are you?
Like, not real sure what you guys do, what you guys have for communications majors.
Instantly she's turned off. She's gonna give me a great experience and make me walk away and I'm gonna be like, yes, I killed it. No, I didn't, right? So you have to have a little bit of this confident thing, right? And I know that for some individuals, it's kind of like that extrovert that needs to come out. You're going to a career fair, right? There's tons of competition, there's tons of employers, and they're looking for, as we say, the best of the best, right? So you want to make sure that you're presenting yourself the best way you can, right? Being confident, knowing something about the organization, fake it till you make it. If you're not that most confident individual when it comes to presenting yourself or networking with individuals, for that first 1 to 2 minutes, be on fire. Know so much about the organization. They're like, wow, this person is great. And then the conversation will ease because it'll jump onto your resume then. Does that make sense to everyone? But that's real. They're looking at how you approach them. We're looking at what you have on. Not necessarily, is it a suit? Is it pristine? Did it cost a lot? But like, is it neat? Is it representing you the right way? And I know those are some things that we just talked about, right? What is your brand, right? So a communication strategy for relaying your identity to the outside world. I think we pretty much covered that. So what's special about you anyway? What does that mean to anybody when you read that sentence?
What makes you unique?
Yeah, what makes you unique? What, right? So I think you already expressed there's over 1,000 students, a couple years, maybe in the fall, in the fall, that came to the fall career fair, right? That's a lot of competition. So imagine Quicken sitting at the table and it's like minions, everybody looks the same. Think about something that sets you apart, right? What about understanding what the company does, their opportunities, maybe their mission statement or their goals, and how that aligns with yours? If you attack the career fair or any recruiter with that information, for one, even if they don't have a match for you, they'll remember you for sure. And when an opportunity comes available, if they don't have one, I guarantee you they'll call you or email you, especially if you're doing the right things as far as following up. But what is it that's so unique or special about it? What are you involved in on campus? What clubs are you a part of? Do you work and go to school? Are you a student athlete? Are you part of Greek life? Those are all things that separate yourself from other individuals. that make sense there? Any questions on that? So, what makes your brand? I'm just going to throw all those up there. Any of these people look familiar to you? Who looks familiar to you on that slide?
Phelps.
Which one?
Phelps.
Phelps, right? So when you think about Michael Phelps, what do you think about?
Hardworking, determined.
Excellence, right? Gold medals. Works his butt off in the pool. Student athlete, grinds, does things other people don't do. What about behavior? What about the behavior one up there? Does anybody remember that? When Kanye went on stage and Taylor was getting her award and he kind of made himself look really bad and tried to embarrass her at the same time? That's not the type of behavior that you want, right? That's not what companies are looking for. That is not what they're looking to help build their brand with, right? What about unique ability? I think we talked about that, right? So you see the Williams sisters, right? They have this ability that they grind, but it's very similar to Mr. Phelps, right? As far as how they prepare, how they attack life, I'm assuming, just based off of their success and those type of things. As you can see, appearances up there, values. These are some of the things that you need to have in your mind when you go to the career fair tomorrow, right? And let's say beyond the career fair, applying for an opportunity, applying for a job, even something here on campus applying for, right? There's a certain, I don't say baggage because it's not the right word, but there's a certain aura that you carry when you walk into a room, when you walk into an employer, when you walk to work, when you walk into class. And you want to make sure that that brand is accurate to the person that you are as a whole. Does that make sense? Any questions with that? None? Okay. So, appearance. I know we talked about dress, grooming, your body language. I know we have a check here as far as a resume and an X there. Why do you think this one has an X and this one's more of a check? Just by first glance.
Look as professional. It looks a little kind of disconnected, I guess, with the information.
Yeah.
Just everywhere. That one on the right just looks a lot better.
Looks a lot better, right?
It looks more plain.
Looks more plain, right? So more precise, clean, right? Those are the type of things that employers, companies, especially tomorrow, when you're talking about the masses going to be at the event, are looking at too as well. How you're dressed, how you're groomed. I know in the last, it said, I think it said at the bottom, like deodorant. Make sure you wear deodorant. Make sure you're representing yourself the right way, right? A mint always helps because you're going to be in close proximity with someone, talking to them, right? Then your body language. I think I kind of demonstrated that with the little role play I did with Kelly, how I had my head down, I was leaning on the table, kind of like, I don't really know what you guys do, but I'm looking for a job. That's not the behavior that you want. You want to have this aura of confidence, your body language, all those things need to be in a positive manner. Everything is positive thought tomorrow, okay? So from a behavior standpoint, I'll click a few of these things here. So you got workplace etiquette. What do you think we mean by workplace etiquette? Or workplace etiquette.
Being professional.
Bingo. And that's kind of a, I don't say a touchy subject, but you never know who's around. You never know who you're sharing an elevator with. You want to make sure that you're representing yourself the right way. What if you're that person that dresses up every single day? This is after you got the job. You're that person that dresses up every day, you're prompt, you're on time, but guess what? Someone hears a conversation that doesn't sound very diverse or inclusive. What does that do to your brand instantly? Flips it on its head, right? And now you become that person that's like, ooh, they're insensitive to A, B, C, or D. And that's not what you're trying to bring, especially to the workplace. Because what happens is an organization may not find out initially, but eventually they will. Right? It's the sidebar conversations. It's the water cooler talk. It's complaining. It's being that individual that never is being solution focused, but always, oh, there's a problem here. There's always problems, but not having the solution to try to fix it. Work ethic, initiative, kind of being that person that's curious, right? That's a go-getter that doesn't wait to be told to do something. They just kind of like, hey, that needs to be done. I'm going to go do it. At our organization, it's huge, right? Easiest example I give you is there's a piece of trash on the floor and you just keep walking by it all day. Just pick it up and throw it in the trash. I know that's not maybe in your job title, but that's part of fitting into a culture that an organization has. Does that make sense? Attitude, we kind of talked about that being very positive, right? Am I lying to you that I go to work for the last 13 years and I've been in a positive mood at work every day? I'd be lying to you if I told you yes, right? I wouldn't. I'd be lying to you. But being solution focused and understanding like there's a bigger picture and asking for maybe some more clarity, how you fit into that mix will always change the attitude. There's two things that you can control: your work ethic and your attitude. Employers can't really help you with those two things. Those are two things that you're ingrained. Those are your behaviors, right? That's your brand. They can help you with everything else when it comes to training and all that good stuff. So keep that in mind for tomorrow as well as for the future. And then communication skills, just being clear, precise, answering questions, being thorough, right? Having clarity. Any questions? Kind of talked about some of those already. Language, jokes, spelling, grammar. Especially for tomorrow, grammar, punctuation, understanding communication. You're going to be in situations where you're going to be either standing at a table with someone, they're going to be standing in front of the table, it's going to be close proximity. Make sure that your resume is grammatically right, grammatically correct, right? And that you understand what's on it. I'll give you an example. A lot of times when I get a resume, especially at a career fair, I'll look at it initially, and then I'll take it and put it down on the table. And people freak out. That sounds weird, right? They freak out like, oh my God, what does this mean? Is this good, bad, indifferent? A lot of times I just do it because I want to be concentrating on you and our conversation, right? Don't let that deter you. Be confident and know what's on this piece of information and run through it with that employee. Does that make sense? Guess what though? If you don't do your research, not every organization does that. Our organization, recruiters will do that. Most companies, some other companies, they may look at your resume the whole time you're there and they may not, you just are this person on the other side of this piece of paper they have in front of their face. That's okay as well, but that's their culture. Does that make sense to everyone? You sure? You kind of looking at me like, yeah, kind of. Does that make sense? You sure? Okay. All right. So, resume. How good's your experience? What gaps exist in your experience? How well can you talk about your experience? I think we kind of started to touch base on that a little bit. How many of you feel so confident that, I know your resumes might not be in front of you, you can tell me everything that's on your resume right now? Well, you raise your hand really quick. So, go ahead and tell me.
So currently,
Start with your name.
Okay.
What's at the
You
top?
want me to start top?
Absolutely.
So at the top is my name, and then it has like my contact information,
Mhm.
my cell phone, my email,
Yeah.
and then I just kind of list my jobs from current to like most current to not as current. So.
Uh-huh. What happened?
And then I show all my skills and like,
Uh-huh.
all my organizations that I've been part of.
Okay. That could happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Give him a round of applause, right? Because I do put you on the spot. Don't let what the person on the other side of the table distract from what you have already up here, right? Who of you have an elevator pitch? In your head, you kind of know like, I'm a sophomore, I'm from Detroit, I have all these factors, right? How many of you kind of know a little bit that you're ready to prepare for tomorrow for your elevator pitch? I'm that guy again that will say, right in the middle of your elevator pitch, ask you a question. You know why I do that? I want to see if it's authentic or if it's memorized. How many of you have crammed for a test? I have, right? I just want to be able to regurgitate it in an hour and then I'm done. I will learn it later, right? Same exact thing goes with your resume, with your elevator pitch. So, hopefully tomorrow, no employer does that to you. If they do, that's not where you want to work. That's not where you want to start your career. Real talk, even if it's us, right? And then if it is, please let me know and I'll go talk to that person. But you stay confident in understanding that, hey, I'm presenting myself and my brand, right? As soon as I turned my back, you were like, what is he, in your head, I know you're like, what is he doing, right? And then I looked at my watch.
I don't know what he's
I looked at my watch. I looked at my watch and my phone. I was trying to distract you. Imagine this room full of 1,000 people tomorrow. That's the career fair. And you're trying to have a one-on-one conversation, probably with a recruiter, maybe a little bit closer than
Because I'm
this.
trying to focus on you, and when I see you turn your back, it's like, you're not interested in my
Correct. Still make sure you give them a great performance. Does that make sense? That way, hey, I did my part. Too bad for you. I'll go work for some other company and be great. Okay? So I did that so that for this right here, know what you're talking about, know your experience, know your resume, know your elevator pitch. Don't have it memorized. Know it. It'll come a lot across more genuine. Make sense?
Eric, do you mind if I
Yes.
interject for just
Absolutely.
a second? I have a document here that we use at Career Services that helps people create elevator pitches. So in the case that, as Eric was talking, you started to think yourself, gosh, I should probably think a little bit more about this. This will help. And you can even come to our office immediately following this and have Eric help you create a pitch. Just throwing that out there.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
So I was just curious, how long should your elevator pitch be? You said like a minute? 30
So recruiters span,
Yeah,
right? They're judging you the first
yeah,
10, 15, 30 seconds.
okay,
That's about what it should be.
okay.
But don't make it, this is just my preference. There again, it goes back to where you're going to have the elevator pitch and who you're talking to. Don't be robotic. Be
Yeah,
yourself, right?
Yeah.
If the person you're talking about is truly interested in you as an individual, right? And when I say that, meaning company recruiter, they'll ask you some deeper questions based off the information that you give them.
Okay.
So if it's the less rehearsed it sounds, I know that sounds weird, but the less robotic it sounds, the more like a conversation it sounds, the more they're gonna be intrigued to have a conversation with you, right? Imagine your friends. If all your friends were robots, you'd be like, man, listen, I already talked to Jeff or Sally. I don't need to talk to you because you're saying the same thing. You have the same cadence, everything's the same, right? You have friends and people that you hang out with because they're unique to you in some way, shape, or form. Try to be your authentic self tomorrow.
So I'm going to chime in there for a half a
Yeah.
second too. So the purpose of Eric's right. You don't want to go in there robotic. I mean, imagine those employers would never come back to Oakland University again if we sent Eric 1,000 robots tomorrow.
Yes,
Not
that's
interested,
correct.
right? So the idea of preparing for an elevator pitch is almost counterintuitive, right? Because he just said don't be robotic. What my advice would be is to make an intentional plan. You know what I mean?
That's where plan things.
Really sort of have it in your mind what you intend to say. Even maybe go so far as to script it out, but don't memorize the script.
Yeah.
There's something about that pen to paper that just sort of puts it in your mind so that you're actually more prepared for it to be in a more organic discussion. And keep in mind that career services folks are floating all around in that area where students are just sort of hanging out before going into the fair. And you can practice it with me. You can practice it with Josh. You can practice it with any of us tomorrow. And it's in a zero risk situation. And it's a great way to just rip off the Band-Aid before going and talking with somebody that has a potential job offer.
It's being planned, right? It's having a plan, having a blueprint. But also know that when you have a plan or a blueprint, there's roadblocks that are going to happen during that time frame, and you need to be able to adjust, right? So I know she passed out kind of like an elevator pitch, like a plan. It's good for you to have that, but try your best not to make it sound like, okay, I memorized the whole thing last night, and I'm just going to go regurgitate it to 20 people tomorrow at the career fair. Does that make sense? So, unique ability, right? This is more for you to have for yourself, just as some weapons, some tools to be able to express how you're different from the last individual that just spoke to the organization. So, write down skills, traits, those type of things that are going to separate you from your peers. Your strengths, right? And understand that, like, we all have weaknesses, but you're willing and ready to learn from those weaknesses. And I know it's not up here, but a lot of organizations do what's called behavioral-based interviews. And you may hear some of those questions tomorrow, right? Where they're going to say, tell me about a time when, and then you fill in the blank. And they're trying to assess your brand, your culture, your work ethic, Do you learn from your mistakes? How do you handle feedback? Are you competitive? Are you a person that takes responsibility? Those are all the things that they're trying to assess, and all of that kind of makes up your brand, your personality. Does that make sense to you? This is really a continuation of that, your values, your values, your goals. We talked about this earlier with not accepting an opportunity just because it sounded great. Do your due diligence. If it sounds great and it fits your work ethic, your culture, there's diversity and inclusion, things that you really care about as an individual, then yes, you should be accepting that. But you have to decide that. I can't help you with that. Career Services can frame it for you, but your why is your why. It's not ours. Does that make sense to everyone? So you have to have like a why or mission statement for yourself. And then make sure that you're looking for compliments that are going to help you achieve those goals in that. I'm not going to read all these to you, but this is just some ways that you can discover some of your passion to as well, right? Reaching out to career services and career counselors, identifying themes in your life, visualizing where you're going to be in the next 5 years, seeking out additional experience. Are you that person that just waits for people to tell you to do stuff? Or do you take the initiative and say, hey, I want to go try that too as well on top of what I'm already doing, to make yourself what we call at Quicken the obvious choice, right? The obvious choice are those individuals that their characteristics are built to where, okay, I'm done with what I have to do. I'm just not going to sit here for the next 5 hours. Let me help you with your project. And next thing you know, you lead that project, and as well as some of the responsibilities that you have as far as your job title is concerned too as well. And then next thing you know, people start to notice those things, meaning your peers, your leaders, and they go, wow, that's a person that I want on my team, that people are fighting over you. That's what you want. You want people to fight over you within the career fair tomorrow, for sure. You want to have multiple interviews, multiple callbacks, multiple connections that you want to make. But all that is going to be revolved around the type of presence and the brand that you're going to carry with yourself. That makes sense to everyone? Pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. This is, in my opinion, this is probably one of the toughest things to do. Who's been in a situation that you're like, I'm not comfortable dealing with this, right? But you had to fight through it anyway. You raise your hand, so do you mind sharing? You don't have to.
No.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. I hate public speaking. As bad as that sounds. I hate it. I get sweaty. I get like clammy. I'm trying to figure out what I'm gonna say next, right? I've just been doing it for a long time, so I just deal with that. Take a deep breath and like, oh, worst case scenario, I go fail. No big deal, right? But putting yourself in as many situations, for those of you that have never been to a career fair tomorrow, you're gonna be in this. That's why I suggest to take that lap. But the more confident you are with yourself and knowing that, yes, I may succeed, or yes, I may fail, what are you going to learn from each one of those situations? Getting out of your comfort zone will become a little bit easier. At our organization, we purposely try to put people in a situation where they're not in their comfort zone. Because when you're in your comfort zone, you're not learning, you're not pushing yourself. You're just in a situation where you're like, oh, I'm comfortable, I'm good. I don't want to push to see what's on the other side of the wall, or what are they doing over there, I don't really care. I'm done with my work, I'm just going to sit here till tomorrow, and then I'll come back and do it again tomorrow, right? You don't want to be that individual. You're going to be curious. Make sure that you're pushing yourselves tomorrow, okay? And if you need assistance, anybody from our table, if you say, hey, listen, can I practice this with you really quick? I don't know if I really want to come work for you yet, but I just want to run something by you. Any of the individuals from our organization will step to the side and have a conversation. And plus, I know there'll be people there from Oakland as well, okay? Reading and research, we kind of talked about that already. 7 degrees of separation. You know somebody that knows somebody that knows someone, so that builds on that research piece. Even when the opportunity sounds like this is it, maybe ask someone. Check them out on LinkedIn. Send a random message to somebody that works for their organization. Hey, I'm thinking about joining your company. What can you tell me about it? The more information you have, the better, okay? So, brand toolkit. There's a lot of stuff on this screen, right? Brand does no good if nobody knows about it, okay? I'll read that again. Your brand does no good if no one knows about it. So this is a chance for you individuals that don't like to talk about yourself, talk about yourself a little bit, right? Get people excited about you and what you have to bring to the table. Few things you want to keep in mind. I know business cards in red, I know we talked about that. It's not a necessity, but if you have it and you feel like sharing it, do so, okay? Do you blog? Are you a mentor? Your email address. Don't kill your brand with some crazy email address that a recruiter has to reach out to you. And they're going to be like, because what's going to happen, first thing they're going to do is like, look at this person's resume, look at their email address. That's what's going to happen first, and then they're going to email you. I'm just telling you, it's going to happen. I've seen some crazy stuff in my days. Resume cover letters, make sure that those things are grammatically correct and they represent you the right way. Social media. We could stop the whole presentation. We talk about this for hours. The person I'm looking at right now in this room, make sure that that fits the person that's online. And yes, Snapchat, it disappears, but it's still there. Does that make sense to everyone? Instagram, you can delete, but it's still there. We have an organization, at our organization, I should say, there's an entire team that if a person's coming in for an interview and any red flags pop up on that person's background and their social media, a recruiter will get an email. Hey, you meeting this person tomorrow? Boop. And then they take a screenshot of what they see on your social media. Now, can we make a hiring decision based off of it? No, and we won't. But guess what that does to you? Puts you behind the 8 ball a little bit. If we see something on social media that is not representing yourself the way you want to be represented, or the way the organization wants to be represented. As a company, we have these things called isms, right? It's like characteristics, 19 of them. And it's kind of like, this is how we live our life daily, on a daily basis, right? These are the values we stand for. Here's our culture. As a company, we are not looking for you to come create our culture. We already have it. We're looking for you to come and add to the culture. So if we see something on social media that doesn't add the right perspective to the brand we already have created, no matter how good you are, and you could be the best match for the opportunity, we will not offer you the position. Does that make sense? I say all of that to make sure you have this in order. Don't have all these other things in order and that fail you. Okay? And we live in a day and age, everybody has this. I'm getting live streamed right now. You know what I mean? So make sure that those type of things are in order. Okay?
All right. So, the last piece that we'll wrap up here, gang, with is the whole notion of following up after the fair. So you go to the fair tomorrow, right? And you go through all this time, effort, and energy to have this perfect pitch, and your resume is pristine, and you have these wonderful conversations with employers. And then the next topic is really how to stay in touch with employers after the fair. So it's a little bit out of order, but the way that I'm going to summarize this advice to you is check out their website. If they have a position that you're interested in that you haven't yet applied for, then now's a great time to do it. And that makes any type of follow-up messaging that you send that much more meaningful. So Eric, if I met you at the fair and I were to send you a LinkedIn message, would you prefer it just to be that blanket, whatever LinkedIn sends? Or what about if I said, I saw this in the
Make
file?
it personal. Mm-hmm. Hey, I met you at the career fair. We had a great conversation about A, B, C, and D. I saw this opportunity online. Can you talk to me more about it? Mm-hmm. Just a couple lines. It doesn't have to be dissertation. Just something that says, I saw you, we talked, can you help me? Right? Keep that in mind. And most recruiters automatically will click, yep, and they'll accept you. Right? But then, if they accept you, going back to the last slide, make sure your LinkedIn is right, you have a proper profile picture, everything about it is right. Because as most companies, and I'm sure you as well, I get tons of them. If it doesn't say student, or business partner or company, I usually decline them because
Mhm.
I have enough friends. I want like meaningful relationships. People they want to reach out to me and I can reach out to them. Does that make sense to everyone too as well?
And then if you were to actually follow up with an email, this is an example. And again, we just talked about branding and standing out. So I'm not gonna ruin what we just spent the last hour doing by saying your email should follow this specific template. But sometimes students are kind of thinking, well, if I were to send a follow-up email, what are some things that might be included? And this gives you a general idea. And then I was actually going to leave that up for a minute in case anybody just wants to take a picture of that, in case you want to be thinking about what an appropriate follow-up might look like in terms of what you might include. Okay? All right. So, any questions, folks?
Is it random? Is this template site gonna be posted, or this presentation gonna be posted anywhere? I took a lot of notes, but I'm just curious.
So I know that we live stream this, but did we
Okay.
record it too, Charles, or? Okay, excellent. And is it gonna be?
Yeah, so we can give you a link to the recording, or to our YouTube page, or
Yeah.
that's probably gonna be.
Okay.
the best way.
Very
Okay,
good.
cool, yeah.
So that you can go back and view it
Yeah,
again?
yeah, just
Yes,
like that again.
yes.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions, Gabe? Okay. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so tomorrow, like, when you walk up to a booth, is the first thing you do is give them a resume, or should you do your pitch and then give them a resume, and how do you bring it out?
How do you meet your friends here on campus?
Like, to introduce them, yeah.
Just go up and introduce yourself. Hey, I want to stop by your organization. I know you do A, B, C, and D. What type of opportunities you have? I know I saw this particular position. Is it okay if I give you my resume?
Okay.
And then just-
Okay, because I just know it was like too, I don't want to like, just walk up, before I even say anything, just go with that.
No, introduce yourself
Okay,
first,
so
and then go
alright.
right into that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sometimes people will even give the advice too, like if this is your dream employer, maybe don't go to him first. Maybe like go to one of the ones that you're sort of practicing with, right? One could
Absolutely.
argue
That's
that there's
great.
something at risk in all situations
Yeah,
at a
that's
fair,
what it's-
right?
Yeah,
But
finish with a
if,
bang.
if there's one that's like at the top of your list, don't wait too long because he's going to have a huge line tomorrow, okay?
Okay.
But I think that maybe they aren't the first that you talk to, so you can kind of work some of that nervous energy out. I promise you it'll start to feel more natural.
Okay, cool.
So. Any other questions, gang? Anybody gonna come see us next door? More advice from Eric? Might not be a bad thing. Let him take another look at your resume. Okay. So if you intend to try to have Eric take a look at your resume, you can just meet us next door. We're gonna be heading over there shortly and hope to see you guys there. We're gonna be in the Career Services office next door in North Foundation. So, okay.
Best of luck tomorrow, everybody.
Yeah, best of
Absolutely.
luck, guys.
Great.
Just take your time, relax.
Just
Do you
need
have
this, right?
Just keep
Instagram?
moving. Absolutely.
I do, yeah.
Everything, if you just go, I tweeted it on like all of our
Okay.
platforms, so you can go on any of them.
Okay.